Hi everyone, my name is Sahel. I'm going to go over my project about food access in Chicago. I've done this project in Python. So before I jump into my process in Python, I first need to say what is my research question. My research question started with questioning people's access to food in Chicago. I wanted to look at the different income class and their access to food. And later, I also looked at their access to quality of food and variety of food. To do that, I needed 4 data sets: income, population, location of grocery, and shapefiles of the Chicago. And of course, at the beginning of every Python project, we need to import some libraries. I did import, and the most important tool was GeoPandas and GeoPlot. I added some additional, although I didn't need them, but just to be on the safe side. I started by looking at my data sets. My data sets were income, population, location of grocery, and shapefiles. Well, income and population were in a similar CSV file by the name of income. So whenever I say my income set, I mean income and population. So I look at my data set to see what's going on. I saw that, for instance, in my grocery income, in my grocery data set, some of my data are objects or flats, but I need them to be numeric, like latitude and longitude. We know that in this type of a special projects, we need to work with latitude, longitude, geo-IDs, shapefiles. So it's important to know what are their types and what are their data types and change them if it's needed. And also I needed to put my latitude and longitude into coordinates to be able to just deal with one column. So I quickly just plotted what's going on in terms of location of grocery stores in Chicago. As it is obvious in this map, they seems evenly distributed. So maybe a little bit more density here, but well, before knowing what's going on in terms of income and population, this representation of data is not saying anything to us. So I moved on and started to look at joining my tables to be able to bring in more than one data into my map to start my analysis. The very first step was to make sure when we are joining tables together, well, join is a GIS term, I mean merging tables together, we need to make sure that our merge base is labeled the same. For instance, in my income data sets, geo IDs are named geo underline ID, but in my groceries data set, they were named census tract. So I had to make sure they are consistent. I also did some label cleanup to know when I'm saying population, I mean population, not B01003. So just a little bit of cleanup. I created my first join table. Now, after connecting income and population with location of grocery shops, now I needed to bring in my third data set, which is shapefile of Chicago. CHI was my file name for Chicago's shapefile. I created another join table 2, and merged my shapefile, Chicago's shapefile, with join table 1, and I created join table 2, which now has everything in it. So, and also I again did some cleanup. I had 3 income level in my income file: lowest quantile, highest quantile, and top quantile, that I changed them to the readable common names, not census specific acronyms. So I again look at now I have a huge table, join table 2. I look at my data to see if I need to change anything. I definitely needed, I did some change in the some other labeling and renaming to make it user-friendly, and moving on. At this point, when I had one comprehensive table, join table 2, that collected all my data set together, I was ready to start mapping my project. I did some experiments here. I'm not going to explain them because they did not get me to a good point of analysis. These are just experiments until I got here. In this one, I basically had in my joint table 2, I had my grocery locations. I had basically my census tract identified by the grocery stores. And not all census tract had grocery stores, so they turned out to be wide. And also, I colored the map based on the lowest quantile of income. So what it turns out to be was something like that. Now I see all the tracts that have grocery stores in them with people's income range in them. So what I see here is not something super specific about groceries, but I see the income level of people in this area is higher than the South. So downtown Chicago income level is much higher than the South, and the North part is a little bit better. So I got the same result for the highest quantile. So again, downtown is better, South side is like in the lowest part, and North was a little bit in between. The same thing for top 5%. So in this analysis, I didn't have information about the census tract that did not have grocery shops into them. So I created another table, joint table 4, and this time I merged a Chicago shapefile with the income level. So, and also based on the geo ID, and dropped all the census tract that I didn't have any information about them. So what I ended up having, and this time I went fancier. I added a DPI to them. I wanted to save them for my project. And also I told Python where to save them. So it's going right away into my directory, like when you finding C slash your name in Drive C. So this time I'm seeing all my census tract here and with the income level. So it's a better representation of what's happening in terms of income in Chicago. We see that this part, the poor people are really poor. They are doing a little bit better, like their income level is about 40. But in this part, we have people who are dealing with $5,000 or even less income. We have also a cluster of poor people here. And in this part, people are somehow doing average and a little bit of dislocation. So the similar pattern for the highest threshold of income and the top 5%. In here, I did some acrobats. I tried to put all three of them together and it turned out to be nice. However, I could not tilt them. I don't know how I could have done that. Also, I really love this analysis because all three of them were together with a similar scale, but it was not successful in terms of having the north pointing out to the north. So after that, after looking at the income and the distribution, income distribution in Chicago, I wanted to get a better sense of what's going on in each census tract in terms of the number of grocery stores. So I cleaned up my grocery store CSV file and realized in how many grocery stores are in each census tract. Again, some more cleanup and like making sure the IDs are labeled properly, and moved on to my new joint table. Also, it's named joint table 3. We already seen joint table 4, but because I did not do this in like a right order now for this presentation, I put them in the logical order. It's the name is joint table 3. I merge my shape file with my grocery stores location, again based on geo ID. And then I started to basically create the maps again, similar to the way I did it for the rest of my maps in this analysis. So in this one, I purely see the number of grocery stores in each census tract. Now I see some deviation, like this one has a huge number of grocery stores, like 6, and some they have 1 or many of them 0. So, but however, this information does not have the population factor to it. So it's hard to make a judgment. Maybe there are so many people living here. That's why there are 6 grocery stores, not necessarily. This could be an indication of discriminations. So there are some extra analysis I did that is basically doing the same thing, just playing with graphic a little bit. So in here, I created again another joint table. This time I merged my income. We know that my income CSV file contains income and population together with my grocery stores file. Again, checked what's going on, if I need to make any changes or anything, if my data types are right or not. And then in here, I did some normalization. Now I had my counts of grocery stores and also I had my population. So I created a new column in my joint table 5 and put it stores per population to basically normalize the number of my stores per the population of each census tract. So I created another table, joint table 6, and now merge my joint table 5 with Chicago shapefile, because now I want to look at my normalized grocery stores per population on a shapefile. So I did that and redone the analysis. Now I see that almost everywhere in Chicago, with a very little bit of difference, the share of people from the number of grocery stores is somehow the same. So at this point, my argument about people's access to grocery stores in terms of income is rejected. Basically, somehow everyone in Chicago, regardless of their income level, has some access to food per se. So at this point, I decided to look at the quality of food. So in this analysis, there were lots of grocery stores, but it was hard to look at each grocery stores, look at their quality of food and make sure like what kind of a score that grocery store gets for their food quality. However, the quality of corporate grocery stores was somehow obvious to all of us, and they are they are very populated. For instance, Aldi has 36 branches in Chicago, or Jewel has 33 branches. And as I said, their quality is obvious, is out there. So I decided to look at the distribution of big corporate grocery stores in Chicago, and based on that, make a judgment over the quality of food in Chicago. So I had this table recognizing all the corporate grocery stores in Chicago. Basically, any store that had more than one branch, I call it corporate store. So the latest one is Food Smart, and the biggest one is Aldi. And I put them in 5 different categories. My first categories was national chain stores and affordable, including Aldi and Food for Less. My another category was just national chain stores like Jewel, Dominic's, and Carniceria. These 3 are somehow, for people who are not familiar with Chicago, they are somehow like Kruger and Safeway. And actually the first 2 are under Safeway. I think Safeway is under Albertson. So they are pretty much the same type of grocery store with average food price, and they have everything included in them. So average, and the first category, cheaper and affordable. The other one was local chain stores. Chain stores that are specific to Chicago. There are many chain stores in Chicago, so I listed them here. I think altogether there were over 40. And also national chain stores and most organic, like Whole Food. Whole Food has a huge reputation for being organic, and also national chain store, organic and affordable. So Trader Joe's is national chain store for grocery, and it is supposed to be affordable. At least this is what they put out there, and it is organic. So I look at these 5 distribution the distribution of these 5 categories over the map to see what's going on. So Aldi and Food for Less, my most affordable national grocery stores. I see that actually the distribution of Aldi and Food for Less is somehow similar all around Chicago. And actually, Food for Less is more gravitated towards south. So in terms of Aldi and Food for Less, looks like there is equal access. But when I go to the national corporate food chain, I see, well, their quantity is higher on the top, but we cannot talk about quantity that much because we know that population wise they are normalized. However, their variety is much lower on the southern part. You see that if a person is living here, they have access to all 3 of them, but for a person who is living here, the access is barely even to one of them. So the variety is much higher here. They are denser here. People have more choice, but for the south side, no. When I get to the local food chain stores, for some reason they are in clusters. They are not distributed all over, and this cluster looks denser with more variety on the center and north of Chicago and much less in the south. When I go down and look at the Whole Foods, Whole Food has like made it so clear that it's obviously just for downtown and one for the north and no for the south at all. And when I go to Trader Joe's, the one that is supposed to be like affordable, accessible to many people and provide organic food is still concentrated in downtown and nothing in the south side, even north side, and the other side of the Chicago. So at this point, my analysis ends. Uh, Somehow my conclusion is everyone has access to food in Chicago in terms of physical access. I cannot argue anything, but I cannot argue that there is any difference between poor and rich. But in terms of quality and variety of food, definitely southern part of Chicago suffers from lack of quality and variety. I did some more testing here for just my own practice with Python, but they are not relevant to my research question, at least straightly relevant. So thank you so much. I stop sharing and stop recording.